Frankly, I was thinking about this the other day too. They kind of nixed the 2020 tour. I don't know if it's officially kaput, but I heard that all the dates they had held are now released, and it's probably not going to happen. But I was thinking, concern is, all the bands staying healthy, and you can't, book a big stadium for 80,000 people and then refund all those tickets and blah, blah. Maybe now's the time Bruce should go out and do a solo tour, take Broadway on the road, do another Devils and Dust. All he's got to worry about is himself staying healthy, and maybe Kevin and another couple techs and lighting guys or something. But and then maybe he can play, we can see some shows, and we can get some of these songs that we're talking about.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Set Listing Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson, and we are in our second episode with my buddy Ron, talking Bruce Springsteen songs. So, Ron, welcome back to the podcast.
Yep, great to be here. It was always a blast. So thanks for having me yet again.
Hopefully, well, no, I love it. So, as the plan is, we recorded an episode a week or so ago where we ranked our Springsteen songs. Now see, it's been so long.
The last decade.
The last decade. Yes, his last decade songs, right. And we had a blast. And so today we are going our 20 most underappreciated songs, maybe. I think that's how we decided, right?
Yep, underappreciated, underrated, overlooked. I think it all falls into this 20.
And so you were talking a little bit before we hit record, but just explain a little bit to our listeners where you got the idea of this topic.
On Twitter and places like Backstreets, and even just in normal conversation, it's always a thing to sort of rank stuff, right? So that's kind of where I got the idea for the 20 best songs of the last decade, and right. People will rank their 20 favorite hits, and they'll rank their 20 least favorite songs, and those two are kind of people probably do that quite a bit, but I was thinking underrated maybe makes a little bit of sense, because you can give some attention to a few things that people don't normally talk about, some stuff that kind of exists in the middle. There's not going to be a lot of big hits or stuff that that everybody loves, and then probably nothing that everybody hates either. It's just that stuff that he doesn't touch enough, people don't really talk about enough, doesn't get enough radio play, you or I or the listeners really like, but people don't talk about enough for our or our taste. So I thought that'd be an interesting conversation and list to run down, and maybe we get a good list of songs and people can go make a playlist or something. And
there we go. So I had two different methods, and I'm going to go through both of them, and then I'm going to tell you which one I went. My first thought was I went through a couple of lists that are on the internet from Rolling Stone, Vulture, Parade, where they rank Bruce Springsteen songs 1 to 100. And I started at 100 and I went, nope, that's too low. Nope, that's too low. Oh, I can't believe they gave that low, and came up with about 25 or 30 songs. And then I consolidated it down to about 25. And then the other thing I decided, and this is how I ended up making my list, is I started at his very first album, went through looking at each track and going, okay, what's a song that fans might enjoy? And in the back of my mind, if Bruce said, hey, Jesse, you were granted your wish, and I've already given you world peace, I've already given you, health, everyone being healthy and okay in the world, but if we just could do a selfish, tour, what I'm going to do a list of 20 obscure songs, 20 songs that don't normally consistently make the set list, what do you want to hear? And so I did those, and that's how. And so mine are in chronological order. In other words, my first song is From a Tunnel of Love, going all the way to Nothing from Letter to You made it, because at this point, I think any song from Letter to You, the crowd would go crazy, right? Like they're, you know, so, but I did go up through Western Stars. So you actually kind of ranked yours.
Yeah, I did. I when we did the 20, favorite songs or best songs, or I forgot how we phrased it, of the last decade, I did what you did, and I went chronologically. I started with The Promise, all the way up to Letter to You, and I just kind of went in order. With this one, I did a little differently, just because I feel like if we're talking most underrated, when you get to your number one or whatever, it should, pop. And frankly, my top seven, top five are all ones that I think are very truly underrated. But number 20 through 14, people are gonna be like, well, that's not underrated. That song is actually a hit. But over the years, it's lost some traction. Bruce doesn't play it. So kind of like you're saying, if you were to give me my show, quote unquote, some of these songs I would say, hey, you know what, you don't, despite the fact this may have been a top 10 hit, you don't really touch it. People don't really talk about, maybe there's other songs on the album that overshadow it. Things like that. So you'll see in a minute here, like I said, my first five, you're probably gonna, or listeners will think, well, people love that song, what are you talking about? But I'll try to kind of digress a little bit and explain that.
All right, sounds good. All right, well then let's get started. You want to kick us off first?
Sure thing. Number 20 for me is Tunnel of Love, the song. Tunnel of Love, I think, is my favorite song on that album. I think lyrically, musically, and Bruce doesn't really touch it live. Brilliant Disguise gets more play, both on the radio and in concert. So does Tougher Than the Rest, which I love both of those songs. Frankly, I really love Tougher Than the Rest. But Tunnel of Love, the title track, again, I think it was a top 10 hit. I'd have to check my notes, but I think it's the best song on the album. I think it's the best radio single on the album. I think if you're going to look at all the lyrics on that album it's about relationships, right? And you have One Step Up and Brilliant Disguise and Two Faces. But I think some of the lines in Tunnel of Love just, wipe the floor with those other songs. And for whatever reason, just isn't played enough. And when he does play it, everybody's like, oh my God, and everybody seems to love it. And fans are kind of clamoring for it, but he just seems to kind of ignore it. So despite being a hit, despite being, popular and well regarded, I'm throwing it on at number 20. So
I like that. I like that list. That's good. I like that. Mine also, and like I said, mine is in chronological, All That Heaven Will Allow. Mm-hmm. I think it's a song that just really is good. I don't know if he plays it that often, especially now. It has one of my favorite, talking about, I want all the time that I can have, especially was poignant when I was facing cancer. And it just, when I talk about often going, that I would love to hear a concert that was started with Tunnel of Love forward. So that's why when I made my list, nothing before Tunnel of Love made it, even though there's some great songs on there. And I actually think that, Factory is rated lower than a lot of people, and they don't do Factory often. So that could have made my list. But so All That Heaven Will Allow is how I kicked it off. What would
he did play a lot of it that song a lot on the Devils and Dust tour, which was nice. And that's why we've talked a couple times now, and I think every time so far I've said this, and I will say it again. I would love another Devils and Dust tour for reasons like these lists.
Exactly.
Tunnel of Love tracks, the 92 albums, and outside of a tour like that, you just don't see
you aren't going to get it.
And frankly, I was thinking about this the other day too. They kind of nixed the 2020 tour. I don't know if it's officially kaput, but I heard that all the dates they had held are now released, and it's probably not going to happen. But I was thinking, if the concern is, all the bands staying healthy and you can't, book a big stadium for 80,000 people and then refund all those tickets and blah, blah, blah. Maybe now's the time Bruce should go out and do a solo tour, take Broadway on the road, do another Devils and Dust. All he's got to worry about is himself staying healthy, and maybe Kevin and another couple techs and lighting guys or something. But, and then maybe he can play, we can see some shows, and we can get some of these songs that we're talking about.
Well, I thought of that with the None But the Brave podcast, put out an episode a day or two ago, and they talked about that, I guess on New Year's Eve, word among people that were in the know said that, it was canceled. And I do find it funny, Ron, that there are people that are wanting something official to come back, that it's officially canceled when nothing officially was ever announced it was happening, right? So like, how can I announce that something that I never announced isn't happening? But anyway.
Well, they made posters for that Denmark show or whatever that was. It was on the street, and I guess they were ready to announce it the next morning or something last minute. So I mean, it was definitely, out there.
And it's worth listening to. It always is with the guys, but they talked about that with football and baseball and basketball, if someone gets COVID, 2 or 3 get COVID, you bring in other people. If Gary and Max test positive for COVID, do you go on without a drummer? Do you, right? That's the issue. But you're right. If Bruce was doing this solo, first off, the odds would be higher that he wouldn't get sick, because they could be easier. And 2, if he did get sick, it would be easier to try to
cancel 2 shows and then you could reschedule those.
Exactly. All right, number 2 on your list.
Number 2, again, this is one that was a hit, but it's one that gets quite a bit of disrespect these days, and I think I didn't like it too much myself, or it's not I didn't like it, but I kind of dismissed it. But now I've really come around to it when it pops on the radio or something at work, is Cover Me.
Oh, okay.
I know some people really dislike it. Ken Rosen, I believe, says it's the bar none worst, least favorite Bruce Springsteen song, although he's never really explained why. I think I hit him up on Twitter about it. I'm like, really? And listed, 5 other titles, and I didn't get much of a response. But to each his own, opinions are just that. But Cover Me, it's got that really slamming guitar riff. It's got a strong vocal from him. It's fun live, removed from the whole Born in the USA era. I think it's it kind of stands on its own and sounds good now. And I like that song. So putting it on there just to give it a shout out.
Hey, I got no problem with that. That's a great one. My number 2 is Living
Proof.
Am
I losing you a little bit here?
Just a little bit, but we're
Sorry,
okay.
Am I losing you a little?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna shut my video off.
Okay.
I
think so too.
So,
yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. All right, go ahead. Sorry, Living Proof.
Yeah, Living Proof, number 2. I just really love the song, the whole feeling about this, the joy of having a child, and once again, it's from that other band, so the other era. The odds of us getting this live are pretty low, though he has pulled it out every once in a while. So Living Proof would be second on my list.
Well, as you know, I told that story about how I took the sign for my just born daughter,
Yes.
And he played that song for the first time in however long, and the band didn't know it and whatever. So yes, it has a special place in my heart too. It didn't make my list only because I think most people are asking for it and do love it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that I think the general fan consensus is they wish he played it more. In fact, I've always thought that song was a little overrated until I had a kid, and that is my I was always, I liked it. It was fine, but it's just, I don't know what I thought about it initially, but I think it just didn't have much of a chorus. It's just kind of the same song just going, and I just didn't really pay a lot of attention to it. And then I mentioned having a kid and going to the show, and somebody on, in a chat room said, take a sign and say, play Living Proof. And I went back and I listened to it. And I was like, holy shit, this is a a great song and 100% appropriate for what I'm doing here. And
Oh, that's awesome.
that's kind of how I came around on that one. Yeah.
I do remember that story. That's great. All right. Number 3.
Number 3, I am going to go with here. I had making a game time decision here. I'm going with None But the Brave is number.
Ooh.
It's actually number 18 on my list. I'm counting down. I know we're
Okay.
going in a different order here.
That's okay.
So None But the Brave. I had Stand on it initially, and my theory behind Stand on it was I was going to let that kind of speak for all the tracks rockers that don't really get out there. So that could have been Pink Cadillac. It could have been Loose Ends or Take Them As They Come. But again, people love those songs and are always asking for them. I don't think anybody really talks about Stand on It. I swapped it for None But the Brave because I was just kind of thinking about what other outtakes or whatever. And I think None But the Brave is a magnificent song lyrically. I think it should have gotten on Born in the USA. I think it would have fit perfectly there. Pick your poison, Stand on It or None But the Brave. But I think just something off tracks there, a little outtake to throw into this top 20, and those are pretty great songs.
Good.
That nobody really talks about, and Bruce certainly doesn't play them enough. So
yeah, so I did my third pick would be Better Days.
Okay.
It's my favorite Bruce Springsteen song. It and Land of Hope and Dreams, the 2 favorite songs. I don't think I'll ever get it live, but I absolutely adore that song. I think it is great advice for life. I've just gone on and on about it. So no underappreciated list is going to be, for me, not complete without that.
Well, you are not wrong. I love that song. And I think he's been, kind of coming around to it and all the 92 material of these two band lately. And although when I say lately, we're talking 5 to 10 years ago. So
yes.
I don't know where that's going to fall if they ever finally get back on stage again. But again, another reason to fingers crossed for maybe a solo tour. You might get it that way.
It would be so nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Sure. All right. Number 17.
No, sorry that we're out of.
No, that's okay. Yes.
Keeping you on your toes. Number 17 for me. Here's another one. I'm still in this kind of groove of things where people might be like, well, people love those songs. Why are you talking about them? But again, Bruce doesn't play it enough. And I think this one gets overshadowed by its A side, which is Born in the USA. My pick is Shut Out the Light, which I think is a phenomenal song. It probably should have made Born in the USA. I get that maybe it works better as a B-side with that song to kind of drive home the point of Born in the USA that a lot of people might have missed. But that song is phenomenal. I was fortunate enough to see it in a solo version. He came to Milwaukee here where I live, and on the Devils and Dust tour, and opened with it on a pump organ, like he often started that shows on that tour, or at least in that leg of the tour. And I never thought I would see that song live, and it was amazing. And just lyrically, it's stunning. It's emotional. It's it's still a song you can actually kind of listen to. It sounds great, and he doesn't play it, and people don't talk about it a lot. And even though they might highly regard it, again, I think it deserves more attention. So I'm putting it sort of towards the back end of this list. So
I think that is a great choice. I agree. I do not know if we'll have too many duplicates in this one because it's so personalized, but I would certainly have it. I considered putting it on my list. Next up to me, Where the Bands Are.
All right.
I just love that song. I love the energy. I love the thought of, I want to be where the bands are. I think that's part of that is because that's how we always feel before a tour happens. Right. And you just, I just think it's a great song, simpler like Meet Me in the City was. I love that song. So that one next to my chronological Where the Bands Are.
All right. Yep, I agree. I love that one too. It's a great opener on the reunion tour shows that I didn't get to see any of them myself just because of my recent birth, I guess. But but yeah, I like listening back to the bootlegs of that. They opened with that and Take Them As They Come, and stuff like that.
I'd love to hear those.
Yeah.
Good. All right, number 16.
Number 16. Now I'm getting into some stuff that's a little more obscure. Stray Bullet from the River.
Ooh, okay.
That song is phenomenal, and I was very disappointed. We touched on this a little bit last time when he announced the River Tour, and he kind of alluded to this idea that, you know, he's going to play the album and then, you know, play some outtakes and then, you know, play a bunch of hits and stuff to kind of, you know, bring the show home and whatnot. But we really never got the outtakes, and Stray Bullet is just one. And it's a slight song. It's quiet. I can see how people might just kind of skip past it, but just I don't even know how to explain it. The vibe of that song and the sort of flow of it and how it kind of builds and lyrically, and it's just, I think it's one of his best songs and certainly most underrated songs. I don't even know if a lot of people know it. Unless you bought that box set, you certainly don't. And I think even a couple of people bought it probably haven't, you know, found that one. So yeah, go back and listen to Stray Bullet on the River Box. It's a hell of a song.
I will check that out. That is absolutely great. My next one is County Fair.
Okay.
It's just a kind of just their song. But from the first time I heard it, I just really loved this song.
Yeah.
I guess just the idea of going to, you know, that fall evening with the smell of cotton candy and popcorn and hearing all the barkers with the games and just you know, going into livestock. You know, I can remember going to small, you know, county fairs as a kid and enjoying the hell out of them. So that made one of my lists.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I totally agree with you. And he's great at painting pictures, and that's a song that does. And like you said, it's kind of slight or kind of buried in there in the mix. And you know, we're kind of on the same page with what I was saying about Stray Bullet too. And yeah, those are the ones people should definitely seek out amongst the big, you know, popular ones.
Absolutely. Number 15, my friend.
15 is Last Man Standing from Letter to You. It's the only one I got from the new one. That song hit me right off the bat. I think it's still the best song on the album. I most of the attention goes to, you know, Ghosts, the title track, and now that he's been doing I'll See in My Dream quite a bit. But Last Man Standing, that's the one that I never skip it when it comes on. I'm always moved to put it on. If I put Letter to You in, I kind of start with that and Ghosts, and then, you know, go from there. So that one, I don't know what it is, but just in terms of him kind of crafting a good, you know, pop rock song, you know, that also tells a story, and you know, I can really feel and you know, visualize everything he's saying in that song, and it just rocks. So and people don't really talk about it too much. They talk more about Ghosts and some of the other ones on there. So
I think that's a really good choice. If you're going to put something from Letter to You, I think that's a really good choice. You know, what's funny is
the whole thesis of Letter to You. You know, Ghosts maybe too, but I feel like that is the sort of the essential song that is kind of letting you know what Bruce is saying with that whole album. It's like the centerpiece, you know, and unfortunately it's kind of overlooked. I don't hear too many people talking about it.
You know, what I found interesting as I was doing the research, right? If I Was the Priest made Rolling Stone's 100th, but it was unreleased. It was, you know, because it was before this had come out, which I thought was pretty interesting. I wonder where they would put it if they're re-ranking them. Right. Next on me is Lion's Den. Okay. It's just a fun pop little hit. It brings me back to my days of Rose Pine First Baptist Church, you know, going to Bible school, vacation Bible school, and, you know, in the summers, and that combination, you know, it's just a fun pop song. And I once again, I just would love to hear him perform it live.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier when I was talking about, you know, Stand on It and None But the Brave. You know, there's so many of those songs on tracks that just kind of get buried in there and sort of forgotten. And a lot of disc 3 is like that. You know, you could and pick, you know, any of those titles and they'd stand up for what we're talking about with those songs.
Yeah, a lot of my came from tracks, just because, and partly because since I didn't see my first show to 2002, there is a lot of those songs that I've never had a chance to hear live. Right. And so I have this sentimental to them. All
Right.
right.
And again, the Devils and Dust tour took care of a lot of that. And again, another reason to,
Yes,
to
exactly.
think
I
about
know.
that, Bruce. I don't know if he's
Yeah,
listening.
yeah, exactly. Hey, Bruce, come on, let's do
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 14.
14 for me, Man's Job from Human
Ooh.
Touch. Yeah. Again, another one that kind of like we're talking about with Living Proof. I probably dismissed it, early on, and I've really come around to it lately. I think it would be a fun song live if he would trot it out more. He kind of brought it back a little bit on the, I want to say 2014 tour, High Hopes maybe. But I brought it back. I mean, he played it probably twice, so it's not exactly like it, became a huge thing. And again, I think some fans are would bring signs for that. I've seen them and whatnot, but I think it remains pretty underrated. And the thing about that song, I'm going to let it stand for a lot of songs on Human Touch and Lucky Town that could have, should have, would have been, I think, radio hits at the time, had the record company or Bruce or Landau, or I don't know whose problem it was, but they picked some really dumb stuff like 57 channels and things like that to represent the album, when Man's Job certainly could have held a place in the top 10 alongside, if you look at what else was, some Sting songs at that time, or Billy Joel or Elton John. Man's Job, Roll the Dice, I had that on here too, but I think that one's a little more well known, so I swapped it for Man's Job. But all of those songs, I don't, it kind of boggles my mind why he didn't think that those would be the ones that might get people to listen and buy those albums. So
yeah. All right, nice, very good. I continue my tracks journey, Car Wash. I just, once again, it's one of those, it's a great story. You know this person, he hates his job, he hates his boss, everything that's going on. So there is a whole concert made up of songs from tracks that in an alternate timeline, he's touring and doing, right? Yeah.
100%. I would love to see that. I mean, I think a lot of fans would, the None But the Brave guys talked about this a lot. And I think it comes up plenty of times on backstreets and fan sites and whatnot, that if you would just go out and play tracks, 2 and 3 or whatever, we'd all go home happy. Steve has said it himself, and
yeah,
times.
Exactly. I agree. Yeah. Good. All right. Number 13, my friend.
13 is Jackson Cage from The River.
Nice.
It gets kind of buried in that album. It gets buried on tour. It gets buried everywhere, but I think it's one of the best songs. He's got, these kind of rockers on these albums that, something like Adam Raised a Cain is a good example. They really come alive live, and they're, these kind of guitar driven songs, and they're sort of intense, and, he's got to kind of shout them and yell them and whatnot. And, they really work. They work live. They work well on the album, but for some reason they always seem to be the ones that sort of fall by the wayside, or fans don't like as much. And I think they like the more operatic stuff like Jungle Land and Thunder Road. But I like it when it's just the E Street Band. 3 guitars, shoulder to shoulder, really cooking. And I've got quite a few songs like this coming up, and Jackson Cage is certainly one of them.
So I always smile because the guys on Bruce Springsteen's The Alphabet said, "Why did Jesse not name his podcast Jackson Cage?" And I went,
I never thought of that.
I didn't either. And I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
What? Yes.
Well,
I could have had a V8 with my moment, right?
Or Jesse Jackson Cage, or I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then you could write Nicolas Cage movies when you're done talking about Bruce or something.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that's very nice. So yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that one. I finished up tracks with Rockaway of the Days.
Perfect.
Once again, it's those mid rockers that are fun, that it would just be great to see. Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that right next to Car Wash, because for whatever reason, I don't know if I made a playlist or a mix CD or something, but those two are always right next to each other, and they aren't really like the same song, but I always think of them together. They're just like part of a whole. And so in another list, I definitely would have.
All right, number 12, my friend.
What Love Can Do from Working on a Dream. Again, kind of the same Jackson Cage type thing. It's one of those sort of mid-tempo, hard are guitar driven rockers, and he's only played it once, and it was great. He played it kind of differently. I don't know if you've seen the video. I think it was in Philadelphia. He played the first verse, just him strumming his guitar, and then the band kicks in for the the second verse. It works just as well. I would like it either way. The album version is great too, but he never played it again. This is one on Working on a Dream that I think people do like. I think it is the one that they all kind of said should have been played more, and should have been a single, and that kind of thing. I think it's a leftover from Magic, which probably explains why, it sits a little closer next to, like Radio Nowhere and Long Walk Home and some of that stuff. But yeah, man, that song is great, and it's really a shame that he never really got anywhere with it. So,
well, you have made a liar out of me. What Love Can Do made my list.
Okay.
So yes, when I got to when I got to Working on a Dream, there was other things. I mean, I don't mind Working on a Dream. I actually think the title track was good. He did it at the Super Bowl, but What Love Can Do made my list. So there we go.
That's good. I think it's aged well. It's one of those albums that when it came out initially, I was kind of like, I was working to defend it.
Yes, exactly.
I wasn't lying. I did like it, but there was a lot more I didn't like, and a lot more I had to get used to. But there's probably 5 or 6 songs on that album that I would put on any mix, and that kind of thing. So I think it is an underrated album overall. But
my next is once again, I think Devils and Dust. We got a little further up on further down the road, but it is one I think hardcore fans, they'll often end their emails with that, or they'll do that, but I think that's a song that I have not seen perform live, and I would love to hear the full band doing it, make it part of their set. So that's, I got that one.
Great.
Number 11, my friend.
I have the long goodbye from I think it's Human Touch. Yeah, it's got to be Human Touch.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
It says something if I'm not even 100% sure what album it's on. But I don't know. I came around to this one a couple of years ago, and I really like it now. I don't know. Nobody talks about it, and again, so it's a perfect candidate for this list. I think it's got good lyrics. I think it's got a good driving, beat or whatever you want to call it. Musically, it's a good song. Just nobody ever really talks about. It's kind of forgotten, and when people do bring up, hey, these songs on Human Touch are actually good, that one doesn't seem to really come up too much. But there's certainly nothing wrong with it, and I would even argue that it's a very catchy song that could easily sound fine on radio. Again, maybe back in '92, not so much now. But when I listen to certain things that come on, even now or looking back then, it kind of boggles my mind that some of this stuff from Bruce couldn't get in there. So. That one I really like. Yeah,
right there with you. Great choice. My next one is from The Rising, and once again, this is a timing thing. The Rising was my first show in 2002, and I didn't appreciate Mary's Place when I was at the first show because I had not really listened to the Rising album much.
Yeah.
And so after going to the show and I started playing the CD a lot, I discovered I loved Mary's Place. It reminds me, ever out on the front porch, it reminds me of, I've told this story many times about growing up on a dairy farm. My grandparents would be on the front porch shelling peas and shucking corn and telling stories, and so that sense of family, that sense of togetherness. And I've only heard it once, and that was my very first show, and I didn't even know what I was getting. So since then he's kind of retired it. He doesn't play it, and it's one that I'm chasing, even though officially I've heard it. I just would love to hear it again, and it just is, it makes me happy.
I mean, I will say I too love Mary's Place. It was kind of on my list, but I ended up putting it in parentheses to kind of bring up and talk about next to
Yeah.
a different song. But you're right on all accounts here. I love the song. I love the lyrics. I think every criticism I've heard about it, I disagree with. I don't know where people's heads are at with that song. I do get that maybe they don't like how long it kind of became and got drug out in concert. You know, he started doing this I'm going to build a house intro, and but I thought it was cool when they put the band intro in there in the middle of it and on the Rising tour. I personally like him doing that. I like how they stretched it out on 10th Avenue Freeze Out. I don't know if you remember me telling you, but the whole thing that kind of got me into Bruce was I saw that live performance of 10th Avenue Freeze Out where he's introducing the band, he's doing his preacher stick and all that, and I was like, holy shit, this guy is something else. And seeing that, and then it was great when I finally did go to a show on the Rising tour that he kept that, you know, alive or somewhat alive with Mary's Place. So that endeared me to the song. But I do think if you just go back and listen to the lyrics, it's a well-written song, great lyrics. It's a fun song, but it's also very meaningful. That last verse with the, you know, bands counting out midnight and floors running loud, and that gets me amped up every single time. And he has played it quite a few times. He brings it back every now and then. It's like when he needs something in the set to like, you know, do something with kind of like Waiting on a Sunny Day or whatever. He has trotted that one out in recent years, but you're right. It's not something you're likely to just see on an off night. But
it's that, you know, waiting on a shot from the crowd, waiting, you know, it's just such a great song.
It's so good. Yeah, I agree 100%.
All right, we're breaking top 10.
Top 10. I did a split here because I more like the aesthetic than I like the songs, but and this is something that is controversial because a lot of people hate it, but I went with Good Eye and Night with the Jersey Devil because I'm a fan of the Bullet Mic. I'm a fan of him doing Reason to Believe on the Bullet Mic and the Devils and Dust tour, and I'm a fan of both of those songs. Good Eye was one of the first songs I heard from working on a dream other than the title track. They kind of leaked to these little quote singles out, and Good Eye, I think it was the first one. I just thought that song rocked, and it come to my astonishment when the album came out, that's the one everybody was dumping on, but I think that song smokes. I love the way it builds. I like the distorted vocal, the blues rock style. That song is 100% underrated. Jersey Devil was very similar. It was a surprise kind of Halloween release. He dropped this video that's very cool, Night of the Hunter inspired, and creepy and everything, and the song fits perfectly with that. So I'll take more of that kind of Bruce if he's willing to give it, even if fans don't seem to agree, but that's why it's on a underappreciated list, I guess. So
absolutely, well done. I stand for it. There are songs, like I say, it's controversy. I like Waiting on a Sunny Day. I even don't mind the kids singing. I just, it brings me joy. My next one, as I continue chronological, Pay Me My Money Down. I love that song, and partly because this has become kind of a shorthand at our house. Anytime it's performance appraisal time, or anytime like if I've lent money to Chris or he's lent money to me, or back and forth or something, or like I've bought tickets and he needs to me, he'll go, "Oh, you want me to pay my money down, huh?" Or, and, pay me. So it's gotten to be this kind of family anthem about that. And I just think it's a fun song. There were a lot of the Seeger session songs I did not enjoy when I got the CD, but then when I watched the live in Dublin, seeing them in live, they came alive to me.
Right.
There's still some I don't enjoy, but Pay Me My Money Down and a couple others are going to make my list. So
yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time, and maybe even on our first thing that I agree with you. The Seeger Sessions wasn't totally my thing, although there were songs in there I really liked. But I saw a show here in Milwaukee, and it was the first time I did the pit thing. I picked my own wristband number. Everybody thought I cheated, and I got to be kind of elbows on the stage and right there in front, and it was great. That show really sort of brought me around to the material. I was like, oh, this is why he did this, and,
Yeah,
and this is
exactly.
what makes this special. And if I had to pick a song from there, I didn't, just because I really just don't consider them his songs. I also just didn't have enough room for it. But
Yeah.
Oh Mary, Don't You Weep, and Mrs. McGrath, American Land, which I guess is his song. But there's plenty of stuff on there that's very worthwhile. And even I can't take all 13 songs in a row typically, but I love listening to the live albums, and there's at least 5 of them that I would put on a playlist and mix in with his other stuff. So
good.
But,
all right.
What am I at? Number 9?
Yes.
Number 9, Rocky Ground from
Ooh.
Yep. This one is a bit controversial, people either seem to love it or hate it. Some people can't get past the rap in it. I think lyrically it's gorgeous. Musically it's gorgeous. I like when he does religious infused stuff, especially when it sort of builds, if you think of like My City of Ruins, or even something like Mary's Place, a lot of stuff on the rising. But I love everywhere that song goes. It was great live. It's great on the record. And again, it's a bit underrated. It's one of those songs that was kind of like the centerpiece of a show, or maybe not a centerpiece, but a staple of the show. And then that tour ended, and then he never really touched it again, and that's unfortunate. But I just think it's a phenomenal song. So
I adore that song. I've told the story many times. When my wife, after the album came out, was on a girls' trip where they were doing hikes and going up trails, and she'd in her mind, we've been standing on rocky ground, as she's going through with her backpack and everything. And so I just talk about, I would love to hear. I was very happy that during the Wrecking Ball, he did a lot of those songs. And so great choice. This one is another one that isn't Bruce's, but it is, I love This Little Light of Mine. I grew up, as I said, in a Southern Baptist church, where I went to church camps during the summer, and we would sing different songs. And I went to a House of Blues gospel brunch, and I left incredibly disappointed because not one song was as good as That Little Light Is Mine. Perfectly fine band. They pertinently sang some great music, but not one song was as good as that. My buddy Sam said that, and I know you and I talked about this last time, that going to the Seeger session was as close to a religious experience he's ever had. And so This Little Light of Mine always makes my exercise tape, because it count it down, Roy, and the piano going. So I don't know if everyone feels about it the way I do. So I just love it. I just think it's a great song.
Well, that's what this list is for. And I agree with you. I love it on that live album, and that whole stretch there at the end is pretty cool. So I like
absolutely
how it's comfortably in the middle there. So
all right, number 8.
Number 8, Valentine's Day.
Great choice.
This one, it's a great song, but I think most fans agree with that. So it's maybe not all that underrated. But again, Bruce doesn't really play it. He played it a couple times on the Devil's and Dust tour, phenomenal versions. It's just one of those that kind of fell by the wayside. He didn't even really play it on I don't think he played it at all on the actual Tunnel of Love tour. I don't even know if we need a full band version of it, because it's pretty much just a piano song. So he sits down at the piano every once in a while and does something. And as much as I love when he does The Promise or Incident or something like that, I would love to see him take time out of an E Street Band show and give us Valentine's Day. And, lyrically, I mean, I relate to that song, or at least did prior to having kids and things like that. And it's a special song. So
a great choice. I absolutely agree with it. Next on me is, and then I move my last one from the Seeger sessions, and I'm from Louisiana originally. New Orleans is one of our favorite cities to go to. In fact, just earlier, this last fall, we went on a quick trip to New Orleans to kind of celebrate me, doing everything and
Yeah.
getting through this. And so how can a poor man stand such time and live?
Awesome.
It's a reworking. It's about Katrina. I think it's so powerful in that Dublin. I was able to hear it once at the Houston show. He played that, and I was shocked that he played it
Yeah.
during the High Hopes tour. So I think when everyone says, hey, shut up and sing, I just love the political statement there, the whole kind of talking from that perspective, where I've got, those who got out of town, those who don't got left to drown.
Yeah.
It's just a very powerful political statement about those who have and those who don't. So I know a lot of people don't like when Bruce gets too overly political, but for me in this case, because it's such a close thing to Katrina and all that, and from Louisiana, it made my list.
Yeah, well, you actually got me here because I forgot all about that song and I love it, and I would have put it on here if I had remembered. So,
Very
yeah,
nice.
I remember when that song was first released, it was like a kind of like a free download or
Yeah.
something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I loved it from the jump. I liked it more than probably anything on the Seeger session, at least at that time.
Yeah.
They had this anger and this just sort of kind of ferocity about it, and and the lyrics are terrific, and it's Bush specific or Katrina specific, I guess, but 15 years or whatever removed from that, it still is applicable
Yes.
to anything you want to apply it to, and I like Angry Bruce, whether you agree with his politics or not. It makes for some of his most compelling work, whether you're talking Born in the USA or that stuff, and some of the stuff on Wrecking Ball and Magic. Those are his best songs. I mean, let's not beat around. I mean, people are going to be like, oh, nothing's as good as Thunder Road or whatever. But okay, fine. But what really gets that fire kind of burning
Right.
under him and whatever, and it's when he's angry, and I think that's the best Bruce we got. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad you got that on there. I'm an
Good.
idiot for forgetting it. So.
No. All right, what's your number 7?
Number 7 is Sundown from the what am I blanking on? Western Stars.
Yes.
Sundown is the first song on that album that I just hit on repeat over and over and over again. I don't know. It's something about his vocal, the way the song builds and sort of cascades around. I tried to kind of articulate this because it was on my list of his when we did the last show about the top 20 of the last 10 years. But I can't really explain, I guess, why I love that so much. I love the lyrics. I love the emotion, the feeling that gets out of it. I think his vocal is great. And it's just one that really captured me. And I think, Western Stars, the title track, and Moonlight Motel are probably the best songs on that album, from a lyrical and sort of evocative standpoint and everything. But my personal favorite, I think, is Sundown. It's another one that I feel like I've heard some songs kind of like that on radio lately, like newer stuff. And I was just like, why can't we drop Bruce into the middle of that with this song? They kind of left money on the table of what could have been a single. I don't think it would have been huge or anything, but it could have got him some radio play, and maybe got that album some more sales. But I don't know. But maybe my A&R skills aren't that great, but it's
I like it. Yeah. I did my next two are both from Magic, and I know that I'll Work for Your Love is one of them that I just adore. And then Girls in Their Summer Clothes, I know they actually did a remix of it, and a lot of people love that song. Once again, I only got to hear it once, and those are two of the songs that I play over and over again with Magic. And so I kind of a duo with those two. As someone who's been married for over 30 years, that concept, I'll work for your love, what others may want for free, and it is hard work being married. It's hard work being a good partner
Oh,
on
for sure.
both ends. And so
Yeah.
I love that. I work for your love, and then also the joy of the girls in their summer clothes and enjoying that vision and just enjoying the life that I've often said it's his version of a Brian Wilson song.
Yeah.
So those are my next two that are both from Magic.
All right. Well, I'm going to keep my mouth shut because we might be talking about this again shortly.
Okay,
So.
very nice. Cool.
Yeah.
What's number 6?
Number 6 is Life Itself from Working on a Dream.
Oh, good.
This was another one that was released as this kind of quasi single. I think it was like an Amazon exclusive back before,
Yeah.
before the album came out. So Good Eye was dropped somehow. I think it was a free download from Springsteen.net. And then they did Life Itself on Amazon or something, and it wasn't free. I remember having to pay for it, but I love the sort of it's a very different song for Bruce. It's the guitar is kind of played backwards. I assume it's Nils kind of doing that, but and just lyrically, it's kind of like Sundown in a way. It's that album's Sundown for me. It's this very sort of kind of stark confessional type song, and again he's got so many great lyrics in there, and of course I'd have to sit here and like really think about the song and kind of go through it in my head to pull them out right now, but of all the songs I'm Working on a Dream, and I already mentioned What Love Can Do, and I mentioned Good Eye, and those are some of my favorites, but that's probably the one that I feel like really kind of stands out, and unfortunately nobody talks about it. People talk about Kingdom of Days and This Life, and those are fine songs, and then The Last Carnival gets some attention, and so does The Wrestler, which was kind of tacked onto that, but Life Itself never really comes up, and I don't get that, because I would put that, if not number one, definitely in probably the top 3 on that album. So
Yeah, I think it's a great album. I do agree, it's a great song, and I do think that it is, Magic was so powerful and so appreciated, and then they just it was different. Working on a
right.
Dream is different, and so great choice.
Yep.
I love Ain't Good Enough for You.
Okay. Yep.
It's one of those, it's such a pop little song. The idea that no matter what I do, it's not good enough for you. I remember there was a discussion on Blogness about people being greedy about what they're going to want to hear and they're doing, and I said, hey, look, I'm just going to be happy whatever he gets, and would I love to hear Ain't Good Enough for You? Absolutely, but I'm just going to take whatever he would. And someone said, I think Jesse nailed it, we're saying it ain't good enough for you. There are some of us fans are so focused that we aren't appreciative of what we're getting. So I'd love to hear him do it live. I think the band would have a blast doing it.
Yeah.
And so that made my list.
Yeah, I have no idea why they didn't ever really touch that song. I mean, like we were talking about last time, I left it off my top 20 because I made this rule about nothing that was recorded in the 70s or whatever. Right. But I didn't put it on here either because I think most people agree with us that that's one of the better songs on The Promise.
Exactly.
But yeah, in terms of why they haven't played it, it seems like a very easy one just to play a fun little ditty if they need it, to trot out. And but I guess he's probably got 100 of those, and you play that one, some people will be happy, and then some other people will be pissed you didn't play Stand on It or whatever we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Yeah, they wanted to hear. Yeah, so
you're right. It's a great song. It's one of my favorite ones on that collection. So
all right, number 5.
Number 5 is Girls in Their Summer Clothes.
Yes.
We kind of touched on it a little bit. I had more songs from Magic on here. I had Radio Nowhere on here back when I was kind of talking about Jackson Cage and What Love Can Do, and some of these kind of guitar rockers that sort of get tossed off. Radio Nowhere was the big Magic single, so I felt I would leave it off. Although I would put it next to like Cover Me and Tunnel of Love is one of these that, even though it's well liked and he played a lot on that tour, I don't know if it gets quite enough credit. I think Radio Nowhere is a smoking rock song and the kind of thing that he and the band should frankly do more of, or at least play more of in a show. But I chose Girls in Their Summer Clothes, but honestly, this could have been Living in the Future. This could have been I'll Work for Your Love. This could have been You'll Be Coming Down. About the only two songs on Magic that, get any sort of real love, it seems like, from the fans is Long Walk Home and Devil's Arcade. Everybody else seems to be kind of split, and even though everybody kind of likes Radio Nowhere, or kind of likes whatever, Your Own Worst Enemy or something, everybody kind of talks about Long Walk Home as the best one, and they might be right. That's a phenomenal song, and the whole album is great. But Girls in Their Summer Clothes is a bit divisive. I know people don't like it. I know people didn't like it on the Magic tour. It's not quite as good live. I'll agree with that, although it's certainly fun. But I love that song. It's one of those that I put it on all kinds of mixes. Every time it comes on, I'm happy to hear it. It never gets old. I love that verse about love's a fool's dance. I ain't got much sense, but I still got my feet. There's so much in there, and like you said, it harkens back to Brian Wilson and some of these 60s songs, but not so much that it's cheesy. And I think that's where he maybe kind of lost the thread a little bit on some stuff on Working on a Dream and some of the later albums, where it just comes off as a little too much. But that song is spot on, perfect. I love it every time I hear it, and so if I'm going to represent Magic on this list, I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah, and I sometimes, heaven forbid, I criticize what they're doing, because I make a big point about whatever the guy wants to play, I'm going to be happy with. But it is sometimes, he has such a diverse catalog, and he goes back to and I guess it's what people want to hear, but there are some that you go, man, instead of getting X, wouldn't it be nice to get something from Magic, or bringing one from Wrecking Ball back again, or something like that. So versus something from Darkness or Born to Run, those albums.
It's like every band, as soon as they have 20 albums under their wing, you're not going to hear too much from the last tour on the next tour. It's all you can do to fit in the classics, and then the new stuff you want to play, and then that's
exactly
it. And I get that, but and like I said, some of Magic didn't really work all that well live anyway. I think the core of that 5-pack they did, where he did like it was Last to Die and The Long Walk Home, and then they also we've in Badlands and The Rising in there. That was great, and you could do that every single tour. But Girls in Their Summer Clothes and some of those other more wistful songs, they didn't quite come off. And I think that's why he went to acoustic for I'll Work for Your Love. They must have thought it wasn't really happening with the band, and that's fair. So I don't know.
Good. Absolutely. All right. Number 4. Because I did 2 of mine in a row, so we're gearing up to 4. Yeah.
Right. My number 4 is Worlds Apart from The Rising.
Ooh, okay.
Much like what I just said about Girls in Their Summer Clothes, I could mention Count on a Miracle or Nothing Man, or we talked about Mary's Place already. I would put that up there. Worlds Apart, there's a couple things I like about this. Number one, it's one of those building guitar-driven rockers that I've kind of been talking about on this list that I really like. So that's another one. If I were to construct a great Bruce Springsteen just guitar rock show, him, Nils, and Steven just going at it, Worlds Apart should definitely be on there. Also, it kind of reminds me a bit of kind of like Youngstown, what they did, on the reunion tour with that. I was a little disappointed that Worlds Apart never quite became the same sort of centerpiece that Youngstown did, because it has a similar energy. If you watch that Barcelona DVD, that performance is just killer.
Exactly.
And so of all the songs on The Rising, especially ones that nobody really talks about, Worlds Apart is one hell of a song, and again, lyrically and the way he kind of talks about we'll find love in this kiss and throw it all away before we're gone, and it's a great song. So.
Yeah, one of the, I agree, really well done. And we go back to, like, how do you fit everything in when you're trying to do a show?
Right.
High Hopes gets a lot of grief, and we did talk about this last episode, where since I didn't collect bootlegs, most of the songs were new to me, except for the ones that like Morella redid. but I just love Frankie Fell in Love.
Hmm.
And so once again, I think I had it on our last episode. 1 + 1 is 3, and that's poetry.
Yeah,
It's just a great song, and I would I think I think the album itself doesn't get a lot of love, but I think there are individual songs.
for sure.
On these other lists, The Wall was listed pretty low on
Yeah,
those different lists of and I think that's something that could have made this list. That is something that I think it's a really powerful song, and especially when he did Born in the USA and The Wall as a duo,
yeah.
really told a great story.
Right. I mentioned that last time I had the wall on,
Yeah,
and so did you, I believe. And yeah, that melding, I was fortunate enough to catch that, and that's exactly the kind of
yeah,
pairing that you want to see. And yeah, I thought about that. I left it off again because I think most people do like the
yeah,
wall, and Bruce did play it on that tour, and so I don't know if it's underappreciated or underrepresented. There were other songs in there that I mentioned last time, like Down in the Hole and Just Like
yeah,
Firewood, and I toyed with having them on here, but ultimately I left them off. But I mean, yeah, I could do 40 or 50 of these, and
yeah,
something had to
exactly.
give.
Yeah,
But yeah, you're right. So
good. All right, next, my friend, you're down to your
next
three,
is,
right?
yeah, we're getting down there now. Number three, All I'm Thinking About from Devils and Dust. I've always loved that song. I like the way he sings it, that kind of campfire vocal. I like that his voice cracks in the, coming out of one of the verses, and they just left that in there. I loved it on the tour. I think it's one of the most vibrant, playful songs on that album. And again, a lot of people, it's divisive. A lot of people dislike it. It's not something he touched much on the tour, or definitely not after. But I think it's a real bright spot on that album. And yeah, I just love it. I remember when my first child was born, I made this little mix CD with just, kind of like lullabies, but I didn't really have a lot of lullabies because I was a 30-year-old guy who doesn't have lullaby CDs. So I just put, slow, quiet, songs she could kind of fall asleep to. There's some,
Hmm.
Tom Petty ballads on there and stuff. And that's one. And, I think she still likes it. I mean, I don't talk to her about it every day, but,
Yeah,
so it's got a special place in my heart for that reason. And yeah, I just think in terms of, if we're talking songs that I really love that the fans don't talk about and Bruce doesn't talk about and nobody touches, it's very, very high on the list. So
oh, absolutely. I think I've shared with you that the Devils and Dust tour was my second show, and it was the first one that I'd felt like I'd done my homework. I
yeah,
knew every song on Devils and Dust, and so there's a lot of gigs. Like, I love Maria's Bed, that joy of
yeah,
I'm coming back, and um, I there's a lot of theirs. Jesus Was an Only Son,
yeah,
so that several of those could have made my list just as easy. Um,
yeah.
do understand those may be a little tougher to throw in with a full band show, but
Oh, for
all I'm
sure.
thinking about you would be, I think, pretty well to do.
Right, especially if he's going to
Yeah,
do it a little acoustic spot, or frankly, the band could work something up for that.
yeah,
And yeah, it's just one of those songs that I get
yeah,
why it's kind of slight and divisive, but
yeah,
it's so pretty. The whole album, as a whole, is underrated. That
yes,
that one gets slagged off quite a bit. I think it was fairly well regarded when it came out, but now when people kind of rank it, or when they compare it to his other quote acoustic albums, it's always kind of bringing up the rear. But I don't know. I'd put it pretty high for definitely the last 2 decades, and
yeah,
probably overall, it's in my top 10 for sure, if not
yeah.
blowing it.
I just personal preference. I like it a lot more than I do Ghost of Tom Joad.
Same, yeah.
I just think the songs are more. I enjoy the songs
Musical,
more.
yeah.
Yeah, I want to
Yeah,
be careful, right? That I think there probably are more important songs
for
on
sure.
Ghost of Tom Joad, but just
Yeah,
from a pure listening, I really like that.
yeah.
I'm on the record. This Is Your Sword is one of my favorite songs. It is something that I came this close to hearing live, but Seeds got it.
Yeah.
This Is Your Sword is a song that as you said earlier in our talk tonight, when Bruce puts a little religious tint on there, when he's a
Mhm.
little bit of a Southern preacher, I love it. And This Is Your Sword, a modern retelling of Onward Christian Soldiers,
Yeah.
almost. And so I just love that song, so it had to make my list.
Yeah, I knew you were gonna have that one on there, and I
Yeah,
agree with you. It's a good song. I just recently read Ken Rosen's write up on that. It was his
yeah,
I don't know what, I forget what he calls that, the
yeah,
Kingdom of Days or whatever. But
yeah.
and it was interesting kind of reading about the video, and I'd forgotten. I mean, I didn't forget about the video, but I kind of forgot it had that whole 5 minute sort of prologue before it even got into the song, and
Yeah.
it's it is one of those things that he played it one time, and I know you were about to get it again in Houston, and then
Yes.
Tom Morello screwed you
Yes.
over. But yeah, it certainly fits because it's definitely not played enough. Only played once, kind of like What
Yeah.
Love Can Do and some of the other ones we've been talking about here, and yeah, it deserves better than that. And I think most people agree. Like that was one of the songs everybody kind of cited as being a good one on that album. So
Yeah.
I agree with you there.
All right. You're number two.
All right, these last two is where I'm going to make some heads explode.
Okay.
Number two is "Crush on You."
Ah,
I think "Crush on You" is one of his most maligned songs. I don't really know why. Maybe it's gotten a little better since the whole 2016 River Tour. I think people have maybe come around on it or been less harsh on it. Frankly, if you're going to put that up against some of the other kind of quote throwaway rockers or whatever on the river, I would take that any day over something like "You Can Look, You Better Not Touch."
yeah.
Which he plays all the freaking time for some reason. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know why he thinks he can, concoct a big long showstopper or message, song out of that. But "Crush on You" is it's a fun, just fast pace. He's got a great vocal. He's got that 79 80s Bruce vocal where he can like hit these high pitched screams and everything. And the song just moves and cooks, and there's some funny lines. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not nearly as people talk about the lyrics being kind of cringy, but something like "I'm a Rocker," I like "I'm a Rocker" too, but that's got goofier lines than that. And then you look at something like "Real Man," where people kind of dump on that one too, but that's no goofier than "I'm a Rocker" or "Crush on You" or anything. So I don't know. I think he's allowed to have fun. I think he's allowed to make these silly little songs, and I think what sets him apart, whether it's good or not, how catchy, how fun, how rocking is the song. And I think "Crush on You" is a very good rock song, and I think playing it live as we saw in 2016, it really works. And I think that kind of changed some people's minds on it, and I wish he would play it more. But
I
so in terms of, I put it at number two because it's one that is kind of universally loathed or whatever, and I really
Yeah.
do like it. So I think it goes high on this particular list. But
Well, this is a perfect segue to me. My last song is from Western Stars, and I do not understand the hate of Sleepy Joe Cafe. I don't. People go, it's so derivative, and I'm like, oh, couldn't you make that argument for a lot of Bruce's music is derivative?
sure,
I
got
get
just fun ones.
if you don't want to have a fun little poppy song, I get it, but think it's I think it's really fun. It's got a little bit of the Cajun accordion in it.
Yeah.
It is a nice little pop song in the middle of a very interesting album. And so I get it if you don't like it, but the dismissiveness of people like, oh, yes, we've seen this before.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess maybe like the out in the street, the feeling about Friday on my mind, but then
Uh,
my work with dress away. I just don't get the disdain of the song. Is similar to like you on "Crush on You." So that was my choice for the, as I said, going in chronological order. But I think it's a good way to end, especially as you're talking about "Crush on You" and then whatever the mind-blowing number one you're going to have.
yeah. Well, I will say I agree with you that it's not that bad or whatever. I think it maybe stands out a little more on Western Stars because the entirety of that album is not like that. And
Yeah.
the other songs are a little deeper, and they're doing something a little more of like this kind of contemplative thing. But yeah, you're right. He always has the release. He always has kind of the sunny day or whatever on his album.
Yeah.
So it's not to be unexpected. But Crush on You, the thing about that is on the River, every other song or whatever is a song like that. So why that one is so, bashed when, I'm a Rocker gets passed or Cadillac Ranch I'm not saying Crush on You is necessarily better than those songs. It's fine if you like one better. I might even agree that, Cadillac Ranch is a better song or Ramrod or whatever. But
see,
why Crush on You gets dumped, I don't get it. So.
See, and I would pick Crush on You over Ramrod.
Yeah.
And Ramrod is considered, oh my goodness, I can't believe, we're getting Ramrod. I'm like, okay, I'm not saying.
Well, I don't know. He played that one a lot, and live it is very fun, both on the DVDs we have, and then listening to some of these boots. Recently, I was just listening to the LA one from the reunion tour in the car today, and it you can see why he plays it. They cook at it, and it's a good crowd response. So I get it, but I don't know that it's true that had they put Crush on You in that spot, if that wouldn't have had the same effect, other than the fact that maybe people just don't like that one as much. But I don't think it's a worse song just for being similar to some of those other ones. So so I agree with you. Sorry to get off track.
No, I'm glad you did. All right. What's your number one, Ron?
Number one is Dancing in the Dark.
It's
his biggest song chart wise, and it's maybe his most well-known song. He plays it all the time. So underrated is the wrong, well, underrated is not the wrong word. Used is the wrong word, but I do think a lot of people are like, Dancing in the Dark, or like, I like all of Bruce's, cool stuff, but I don't like, his poppy 84 stuff. Dancing in the Dark is a song that I would have agreed with you maybe, 15 years ago, like, okay, we don't need to see that every show. But in the last few years, if that song pops on at work or comes on in the car, it always puts a smile on my face. It always makes me jump up and take notice. I never skip it. I'm always happy to hear it. I know I mentioned that with something else on here, but Dancing in the Dark is sort of the synthesis of this entire list. It's got its fans, it's got its detractors. It's a big hit, but it doesn't quite get the respect it deserves because it's almost too big. But yeah, I mean, I don't even care about its legacy as being, this huge song and all that. It's just a song I'm always happy to hear. It always puts a smile on my face. I never get tired of the lyrics. I think it's underrated in the sense that the lyrics are about something deeper and darker. And if it was set to a different beat, it could have been Born to Run or any number of other songs, Promised Land, something like that. It's got that same theme running through it. It's just because, they played it like an 80s pop hit that it kind of gets dumped on. But I think it sounds great. It sounds great today. The Barcelona performance is bar none my favorite performance of that song, and I wish there was a decent sounding recording of it. I hope maybe they release it as a Nugs live archive release, because I would listen to that over the studio cut every day. But they don't play it quite the same way now in previous years, and or in recent years, and it kind of drags on with Dancing with the Girls and all that kind of stuff. And it's fun to watch, but it's not always that fun to listen to. So the studio version, is still just in a 4-minute, just pure jubilation. It's one of my favorite songs from him, and it's unfortunate that because it was so big, it kind of gets lapped off by people. So that's my pitch for Dancing in the Dark being his most underrated song.
Well, and I think, boy, is Ken Rosen getting a lot of love in this episode, right? But when he does his, Cover Me segment where he's playing, and then, and he'll do routinely, he just did last week, I believe, as we're recording this, my Dancing in the Dark roundup, where he'll have 4 or 5 people covering Dancing in the Dark, and every one of them are different. And all of them, the different interpretations of the song. It is, I do think you get a little bit the same thing as Waiting on a Sunny Day gets some crap because of the little kid. I think Dancing in the Dark gets a little bit because he does bring someone up on stage, and there's a lot, of, pick me, and I want to dance with Jake, or can I dance with Susie, or, I was here in Dallas the last time when they had, 15 million teenagers all go up there, and it was kind of crazy.
Right.
But the bottom line,
but that's not the song's fault. That could have been any other
the song's fault. Exactly. I mean, and so I I agree. It is one of those where the cool kids, and I say that with air quotes,
Yeah.
Dancing in the Dark, there's a reason why it was his highest,
Yeah.
charting song. It's a great song in the set. And it's a lot of fun, and there is a lot of reasons why people, cover it.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I agree with everything you said about it. And I do think, if we do this another way, songs that don't get enough respect,
Right. There you go.
disrespected songs, and this is a disrespected song. It is a
And
song that,
that's just human nature to it's too
right,
big, so it's it
right,
sucks now,
yeah,
and I get that, and I don't know, I don't necessarily need to hear it every show either, but if we're just talking about the song itself and the lyrics and everything else, like I said, what it how it always kind of makes me just be like, oh, it's, this is a great song every time I hear it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's one of his best. I don't know what else to say about it, but
yeah,
and this could have been "I'm on Fire" too. That one, it's a big hit, but people kind of push that one aside or whatever. And I think whenever that comes on, I'm just like, I almost kind of forget Bruce did that song. I'm just like, whoa, I'm on fire. It's like a nice little
yeah,
surprise when that comes on. And it's weird for a song that was so big, and maybe that album was just too big, and there's so many singles on there. So when I start throwing out like "Cover Me" and "Darlington County" and
yeah,
"I'm on Fire," those are good songs, but they just they're just like, well, I don't want to hear that instead of Thunder Road, so forget it.
yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, perfect. God, this was fun, my friend.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's good. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, well, I was just kind of thinking about where we're going on here. Honorable mention or whatever in terms of underrated Bruce things. That Barcelona show, people don't
Yeah,
like the DVD very much for some reason. I think it's mostly sound related, and I agree. I tried to rip a audio of it one time just to listen to it in the car because I think the performance is so great. But it does sound like crap even on even in
yeah,
good speakers and stuff like that. But I was hoping that since they can't seem to get any good Rising shows for the live archive release, maybe they could at least take the audio from that,
sure.
remaster it, and then give us that. And that would be great, because if you do watch and listen to that, it is a killer performance. His vocals are almost pitch perfect. It's my favorite performance of those Rising songs. Rising and Lonesome Day to start, Worlds Apart, like we already talked about, that Dancing in the Dark. The Born in the USA is killer. It sounds as good as the 80s, if not better. So I think that Barcelona DVD deserves a lot more props than people give it, despite the sound quality. And then Live 75 to 85 too, everybody's always kind of like, oh, that's not good. It's this compilation thing, and they cheated and they took out stuff and added stuff and whatever. But I, I've said this before too, Darkness on the Edge of Town is probably my favorite album just based on that group of songs, but I never really listened to the album because I don't particularly love the way it sounds. Stuff like Adam Raised a
Yeah,
Cain sounds kind of anemic and everything, but when you listen to it on Live 75 to 85, those songs just come alive, and that's pretty much exclusively how I listen to the Darkness stuff and Because of the Night and stuff like that. So I would just say, if we're talking underrated Bruce, Barcelona and Live 75 to 85 deserve much more love than they get from the fan
I,
base.
I absolutely agree. And I remember being so happy when that Barcelona came out because the Rising had been my first show, to get that experience again. And
Yeah.
even if it was, absolutely.
It's so good, and it's a killer performance too. I mean, they
Yes.
just for 50-ish or whatever they were, and I had this thing going for a while, and I still do this from time to time. But I was in college when that came out, so I would come home from the bars, kind of drunk, and I would just throw that DVD in and blast it and watch it till I decided to go to bed. And I would just do that all the time and drive my girlfriend at the time crazy. And every once in a while, I still, on like a Sunday afternoon, if I'm having a few beers, I put that in, and it never gets old. I probably watched that, it's got to be at least 100 times, if not more.
That's awesome. That is
I love the hell out of that.
that is great. I appreciate that.
I'm surprised it still works, frankly. I'm surprised I haven't
Yeah.
burned a hole in it. But
Yeah,
so,
that would be fun for them to remix that if they could.
it's
That
such a
would be
great
very
show.
cool.
So
Yeah,
people should
absolutely.
revisit it if they've
Yeah.
kind of slagged that one off or thrown it in the
Yeah.
box somewhere. So
Get it in Blu-ray or something.
oh,
Do
I'd
the
love it.
sound.
I
Yeah,
would
that'd
love
be
it.
great. Ron, this was a blast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Oh, thank you,
I
Jason.
appreciate it. We will get together again sometime later this year. We'll
All
figure
right.
out some fun things to talk about.
Awesome.
Listeners, you let us know who we missed. What are your underappreciated songs or underrated songs, overlooked songs? Let us know. Send it to me, setlustingbruce@gmail.com. Go get vaccinated, go get boosted. Let's all be safe, and let's all take care of ourselves, and let's all send mental energy solo tour Bruce, solo tour
Yeah.
Bruce, solo tour
Amen.
Bruce, and see if we can make that happen.
They can thank us for it. We'll get a piece of the profits.
Exactly. There we go. I'm just happy if they can just, get me where I can, buy tickets.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, listeners.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.
Doing a podcast at times can be a one-way conversation, and I hate that. So please let me know what you like and don't like about the work I'm doing. You can reach the podcast via email at setlistingbruce@gmail.com. The show is on Twitter at setlistingbruce, and my personal Twitter is at jessejacksondfw. We have a website, www.setlistingbruce.com. From there, you can find links to other Springsteen podcasts as well as other music-themed podcasts. We have a page devoted to our own SLB All-Star Band. These are guests who have been on the podcast more than 3 times. There is a link to our store where you can purchase Set Listing Bruce shirts as well as a Merry Question t-shirt. There is a link to our Patreon page where you can sign up to help support the podcast financially. We have different levels and different rewards based on your support. If you don't have any extra cash, and right now who does, you can support the podcast by subscribing via your favorite podcast player and leaving us a review. The more reviews we have, the easier it is for people to find us. And please tell a friend about the podcast, especially if they love Bruce or music, because it will make a difference. You just heard the fun talking, hard rocking, music loving, album ranking, fan thinking, joy spreading, lyric reading, story sharing podcast that is the one, the only Set Listing Bruce. The theme for Set Listing Bruce was written by David Rosen, used by permission.